They always come back and say Fauci was responsible for closing schools. I had nothing to do.
I mean,
let's get down to the facts.
There's not a single solitary Biden man that is younger than any Biden woman.
When the so-called Inflation Reduction Act will really start to bring down inflation.
Talk about the strength of the dollar right now.
Fauci on ABC this week said, I had nothing to do with closing schools, so nobody listens to you at all? Is that what you're saying? Joe Biden gave an interview while eating an ice cream cone and also had his weekly weekend bumbles. Inflation is up, and also a hilarious story involving poop in Seattle. You're not going to want to miss this. All that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go.
Might be the only brown guy in Earth named Jobob.
That is actually her name, Jobob.
Live from the dingy bunker, completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in on today. It is October 17th, the year of our Lord 2022. And Dr. Fauci is back. As I feel like once a month, Dr. Fauci does an interview. We look at that interview. We go, what in the world is he talking about? And then he goes away and hopefully will retire soon. And by hopefully will retire soon, hopefully will be, I don't want to say indicted, but questioned thoroughly by the Congress when it hopefully or probably flips sides this November. But before we get to Fauci, we got to do our weekly Monday tradition of Biden Bumbles. The president of the United States was in Orange County this weekend. Actually, this is the president and I were speaking about 5 miles apart from each other on Friday evening or sometime this weekend. And I don't know. I think I probably had more people there at my thing. So anyways, President Biden was out and about on the weekend. I feel like I say this a lot, but for national security reasons, they should stop giving this guy a microphone. If you've seen this clip in which he alleges that no Biden man is younger than any Biden woman, I'm not going to try to explain it. Look, I'm just going to play you this clip. Watch this. Be astounded with the insanity that is American politics at the moment and the culture that we're living in and the society that we've constructed. And just, here we go. Watch this.
I married up. I was one of those guys my whole life. I've been surrounded by women who've taken care of me. Maybe they're smarter than I am. My younger sister used to be 3 years younger than me. Now she's 23 years younger. There was not a single solitary Biden man that is younger than any Biden woman. And my wife, by the way, at a community college, my wife is teaching today. My wife is a full-time college professor at a community college.
Yikes. Okay. I don't know. There's no commentary there. Just, this is the world we live in. This is what the president says. And hopefully China doesn't invade, considering that I don't know how good of hands we will be in. We'll be in very, very old hands, but that's that. But this is the interview, and by that I mean he was at an ice cream shop, which we can go down the rabbit hole on the optics of Joe Biden going to an ice cream shop. I think, and unfortunately they might be right, but I think the Biden press people are making the calculation that when he's in Southern California, for example, or really anywhere around the country, the local media isn't going to say anything in an article that people are going to read. So they'll probably just take pictures like the paparazzi of Joe Biden in an ice cream shop. And that's what's going to reach the majority of Americans. Their calculation is that nobody actually pays attention to anything that's going on. And unfortunately, I think they're right in a lot of ways. There's a lot of people that just don't pay attention. So they send him to ice cream shops. And while he's in the ice cream shop, he's eating his ice cream. Doesn't take a break, by the way, to listen to reporters. Is like chomping down. And I'll show you the video right here while somebody asks, hey, what about inflation? And then he gives a bizarro answer. I think he said, well, I'll play you what he said. It's a little bit hard to hear, so we'll kind of rediscuss at the end of it. Then he's got one of his White House press people on CNN trying to absolve the problem that he created while he's eating his ice cream during his interview. Watch this clip and we will discuss on the other side. Oh, also, by the way, if you haven't already, would really appreciate it if you click the little like button down here or the little reaction button down here and the little share button, or give us a comment. Let us know what you think. There's a lot of people in the comment section talking about a lot of different, oh, geez, some of these jokes are very funny, but also not, oh man, the Iraq thing maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit. Joe Biden said that I believe his son was killed serving in Iraq, which actually I heard an interesting justification for that. Not necessarily agree with it, but anyways, sorry, out of control, going off the rails here. Click the little like button, the little share button, really, really does help us out. Really appreciate you doing so. And also watch the ice cream interview.
Are you concerned about, just one more economic one, are you concerned about the strength of the dollar right now?
I'm not concerned about the strength of the dollar. I'm concerned about the rest of the world. Does that make sense?
Can you explain that?
Yes. Our economy is strong as hell. The internals are. Inflation is worldwide. It's worse off everywhere else than it is in the United States. So the problem is the lack of economic growth and sound policy in other countries, not so much ours. And that's how it's worldwide inflation. It's consequential.
So, okay, if you couldn't hear that, again, it was a little bit difficult to hear just because the audio in the ice cream shop, because they give interviews in an ice cream shop. He said, well, I'm not worried about the strength of the dollar at all. I'm worried about the rest of the world. Dang, this is a new take that I haven't heard from the presidency really ever. Generally speaking, I think the president is supposed to represent and therefore advocate for the American people and the citizens that occupy this country. Didn't know that we were more concerned about the rest of the world. Then he went on to say inflation is worldwide, which is true to an extent, but that doesn't absolve the problem that was created by printing way more money than we needed to spend on things we didn't need to have with money that we didn't have. The rest of the world did that as well, and there is that. This is funny. I'm going to bring it on. Arthur says brain freeze. Good joke. Contextually good joke. Kimberly says something funny. I'm pretty sure this is a joke and a good question, because is that cookie dough or chocolate mint? Which is the questions that he generally gets asked when he goes and eats ice cream. I would imagine he walked over to those reporters thinking that they were going to ask him about, wow, what made you make the decision to go with a waffle cone instead of a regular cake cone? Well, I felt like waffle cone today, because that's usually the questions that get shouted at him in his ice cream photo ops. But they asked him about inflation, and he had an interesting answer. All right, I want to play then this. This is from CNN. One of the Biden spokesholders was on CNN talking about inflation. Joe Biden in the ice cream shop was talking about inflation. And she was making the rounds talking about inflation. Also, by the way, this is the last clip of Biden's weekend, the Biden White House weekend. And we got this Fauci thing. The Fauci thing is phenomenal. Not in a good way. Phenomenal in the fact that did some digging. And I think we're going to relitigate the entire school closure thing from the federal government right on down to the teachers' unions and all that sort of stuff. So just stay tuned for that. Watch this clip from Joe Biden's spokeshole on CNN talking about inflation, and then we will discuss quickly and then get right into Dr. Fauci, who said he had nothing to do with school closures. Nothing at all. So watch this.
Yeah, I'm just curious, and a lot of Americans are curious, when the so-called Inflation Reduction Act will really start to bring down inflation.
So the many parts of the bill will start to take effect next year. For example, there are tax credits for energy to help people weatherize their homes and also bring down other forms of energy costs. So we are focused on helping to make that transition to clean energy in a way that brings down energy costs for families.
Okay, so the question posed to the White House official was, hey, when is this whole Inflation Reduction Act going to reduce inflation? She said next year, people are going to start weatherizing their homes. So we're going into winter right now, and then January, the summer comes. You don't need to weatherize your home during then. Okay, so next fall/winter, there are going to be some incentives to weatherize your home, and that's supposed to help inflation now. Because remember, the Biden administration and Joe Biden himself and Kamala Harris and all of them have been saying, well, we passed the Inflation Reduction Act. And for some reason, reporters, including Jake Tapper on CNN last week, just let them get away with saying that. And don't say, hey, nobody thinks this is going to reduce inflation. Do you want to maybe rename that? I don't know. I don't know what we do, guys. I don't know what we do. What I do know what we should do with this guy is haul him in front of the congressional committees and the Senate committees if the Republicans were to take them back in November, which seems, I'm optimistic. I'll get into that. Maybe we'll get into some election stuff in you know what? Tomorrow is a great time to get into election stuff because there's a big ruling last week on the Georgia election laws, and we'll break that all down tomorrow. How about we settle on that? Because today I want to talk about Dr. Fauci. When I'm doing this show and we're putting it together the night before and the morning and getting clips and all of that stuff and trying to figure out what people are going to be interested in, because we want to bring you stuff that's engaging but also have some commentary that is something, I don't know, that you may not see anywhere else. It's difficult to know how much Dr. Fauci we should continue to talk about. In a lot of ways, his quote-unquote retirement, or when he knows that probably Republicans are going to take back the House and, well, definitely the House, maybe probably the Senate. I think that's a good time for him to retire, he thinks. His net worth with him and his wife increased $5 million during the pandemic, such as everybody's. Everybody's net worth during the pandemic went up, right? Oh, wait, yours went down? Just Fauci? Okay. Dr. Fauci thinking, hey, I don't want to be hauled in front of Congress as many times as humanly possible, so maybe I'll just retire and hopefully everybody will forget. So there's a dichotomy in my mind of, should we talk about Dr. Fauci? Because I think people should continue to know about the awful little guy who did a lot of bad things and didn't apologize for any of them. Or should we just let him ride off into the sunset and say, just get out of here, go away, be gone? I chose the former because Dr. Fauci went on ABC this week and gave an interview in which he said, first of all, so context, these school closures probably, arguably the worst thing that we as a whole of society did. Closing schools and keeping kids out of schools was awful, and millions of American kids probably will never catch up to the grade level that they were supposed to be in after 2 years of closures. Not to mention the side that is so pro-poor kids, and by that they generally also mean minority kids, really set those poor kids and minority kids back a lot with school closures. But, you know, they don't like to talk about that. Watch this clip from Dr. Fauci on ABC this week, over the weekend. I think it's fascinating just from a, dude, what is going on in your own brain perspective. I don't know. I don't know what he actually believes, what he actually thinks about himself. But I know he's trying to spin desperately. And let's watch this clip. A little longish, but really, really interesting just to see the way that this guy's brain works. Check it out.
Was it a mistake in so many states and so many localities to see schools closed as long as they were?
I think in some case, I don't want to use the word mistake, John, because if I do, it gets taken out of the context that you're asking me the question on.
All right, sorry. I want to jump in really quick here. This is a age-old politician thing. Nobody can ever admit mistakes. Literally, and this is Republicans, Democrats, independents, bureaucrats. Nobody ever says, oh, yeah, we got that wrong. Because exactly what Dr. Fauci said, well, I can't say I made a mistake. Nobody ever says they made a mistake. I honestly would trust politicians way more if, for some reason, and I don't think he can actually do this here, but if they make a minor mistake, oh, yeah, whoops, sorry. Hopefully that mistake didn't kill anybody, but in a lot of ways, like, I don't know, with, let's just say, trying to revamp the DMV, like, oh, this structural thing didn't work. Sorry, my bad. We'll try again. I would have a lot more respect for politicians or bureaucrats if they did that. Anyways, sorry, continuing on.
Well, did we pay too high a price?
Yeah, I would say that what we should realize and have realized that there will be deleterious collateral consequences when you do something like that. This idea that this virus doesn't afflict children is not so. It does. We've lost close to 1,500 kids so far.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't planning on jumping in constantly. Yes, that's bad. Is 1,500 kids dying bad? Yes. Do I want 1,500 kids to die? No. But the quote-unquote protection of a couple kids who, mind you, that number is not as high as the flu season, as drowning, I think, in the United States. That number over the course of 2 years is very, very, very small. And should we upend the lives of millions, tens of millions of American kids to maybe protect a very, very small few? I don't think so. Probably not the best interest of the greater populace. But yeah, so Fauci's saying, well, it does affect children. This very, very, very small fraction of children unfortunately passed away. Again, I'm not pro kids dying. Nobody is. But relative to the greater population, not a good argument to be making. All right, sorry, I wasn't, again, planning on jumping in.
But much less than the older population, obviously.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't discount that it does afflict children, so it isn't without consequences. If you go back, and I ask anybody to go back over the number of times that I've said we've got to do everything we can to keep the schools open, no one plays that clip. They always come back and say Fauci was responsible for closing schools. I had nothing to do.
I mean,
let's get down to the facts.
All right, so Dr. Fauci saying he had nothing to do with closing schools. Now, he then goes on to talk about, well, if you look it back and I said this and I said this and I said this, okay, fine. I'll go find some interview clips from, let's just say, early 2021. I think this clip that we have with Andrea Mitchell is like February 2021, so like a year into COVID. And Dr. Fauci does say we should be trying our best to open schools. He does say that. However, he says a lot more things that completely negate his whole idea of we need to open schools. Watch this clip to kind of give you some context, and then we are going to just abominate the federal government and the way that they interacted. And I don't know if you remember this story from a couple months ago, maybe even a couple of years ago, that the teachers' unions were very, very heavily involved in keeping schools closed in order to make more money. They used your kids as negotiating pawns to make more money. Wow. Huh. Just when you thought you couldn't get evil enough. Check this out. More. This is Dr. Fauci, February of 2021, saying he's the priority. He says what he says. This is February 2021, Dr. Fauci, and then how that relates to his most recent interview. Check it out.
Is it really safe for teachers to go back to those schools if they've not been vaccinated?
I mean, obviously, you want to optimize the situation in schools. I mean, there are 5 or 6 things that the CDC has in their guidelines that you would like to optimize to get the children back to school, where the children can feel safe and the teachers can feel safe. You know, and you brought up several of them. I mean, obviously, masks, we want to make sure we supply masks. We want to make sure that the ventilation is appropriate. We want to make sure that the spacing can be done.
So I feel like that's a huge problem here. So just to jump in there, Fauci says, in his own words, I think that schools should be doing everything they can to stay open. Good. We all agree. Thank you for that. Having said that, when you set the parameters in a way that can never be met, you saying that schools should try to be open is completely useless. He says, well, schools should be open, but only if they have proper ventilation. You want to know how many schools actually used that COVID money to get better ventilation? I think the answer is close to 0, especially when you look at it as a percentage. No school, I don't think, really did anything to revamp their ventilation. So therefore, in Dr. Fauci's word, even though we should be fighting to keep schools open, none of these schools should be open because they don't have the proper ventilation. And then also the spacing. Wow, okay, so did we just build double the schools because we want to space kids out, which, by the way, wasn't really actually helping anybody do anything? If that's the standard, you saying that, well, we need to keep schools open is meaningless. That's like saying, every American deserves the right to vote as long as they can fly. Do I agree that every American deserves the right to vote? Absolutely. But if you put the qualifier in of something that nobody can do, me saying that doesn't make any difference. Do you get what I'm saying here? Dr. Fauci saying we should fight to keep the schools open is completely useless and meaningless if you set the bar at a place that is unattainable and people aren't doing it. And obviously the federal government didn't specifically close schools down. He says that and he tries to make that very clear, and I understand that to an extent. But school board members across the state, in a bunch of your lockdowny states, state school boards, county school commissions, all of these individual areas were looking to the federal government, which is him. And even though he never said, you need to shut schools down, obviously his influence, the CDC's influence, the NIH's influence had a big impact on whether or not schools stayed open. He goes on, kind of makes that same point again. We'll watch it and then we'll keep going.
What should they do if they can't get a vaccine and they're serving in a inner city school where the kids need them, but the schools are not properly equipped?
Well, I mean, obviously, you're creating the very worst case scenario as a hypothetical situation, which in some respects, Andrea, can be a realistic situation. In those areas, then it's going to be very difficult, but you're going to have to do the best we can to address those issues, which are essentially stumbling blocks in the way of getting these schools open. Yeah.
Again, that is just kind of him saying it again. Well, I think we should have schools open, but there's so many stumbling blocks, I just don't think it's possible. You don't get credit for advocating for schools being open if that advocacy comes with all of these variables and contingents that never can actually be met. Speaking of all of that, here, let me get to some of these comments too. William says, Dr. Fauci is a disgrace. He continues. I don't know why he does these interviews. I don't know why he thinks that does he think he can save his public image? I don't think so. Julie says, go away. Santana says, the school closures messed up my son's junior and senior year of high school. Yeah, it's terrible. This is interesting. And again, this is the VAERS, the adverse effects for vaccinations. Ryan said, how many kids have lifelong health problems because of the vaccines? I don't know. I'm not suggesting that there are a ton. I'm just saying that's another interesting question, especially when you can consider the tiny amount of kids who unfortunately succumbed to COVID. Then this one, Kevin says, guidelines you would like optimized. He won't give a direct answer. Yeah, exactly. That's the problem, considering Dr. Fauci never actually pinpoints anything, and therefore he thinks he can get away with saying, well, I never had anything to do with school closures. I want to go to this article before we move on to the Seattle poop thing, because I thought this was fascinating. Does anybody remember a couple months ago, there was emails obtained by, who was that? The New York Post obtained emails from the conservative watchdog group, a conservative watchdog group, that documented correspondence and conversations between AFT leaders, the American Federation of Teachers, the second biggest or biggest teacher union in the country, a massive teachers union, leaders, and the CDC director, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, who again is not Dr. Fauci, but if you don't think Dr. Fauci and Dr. Walensky talk all the time, you are stupid. Including an email that was forwarded to Walensky by a White House official. So since we're kind of running low on time, and I feel like I've been jabbering on about this because it's really, really irks me, I just want to have a quick reminder that the teachers union emailed the White House on how they believe that the school openings should take place. Well, we need more money. And they said they would use it for ventilation, spacing, all stuff like that. But really, it ended up backing up their unfunded pension liabilities. The teachers unions needed more money because the pension funds in so many states, especially in states like California, where the teachers The teachers union pension is going to bankrupt this state if you live in California. It probably will do the same for a lot of other people. Anyways, the teachers unions know they need more money to cover their unfunded pension liabilities because they negotiated so poorly with the states. They then said to the White House, hey, we're mobilizing votes for you. So do you think that you can get us more money in order to, quote unquote, get our schools open? What they're really doing is holding your kids captive, and they're trying to get money to backfill the pension liabilities. The White House then sent that email to the CDC and said, hey, just so you know, we need to fight to get more money for the teachers unions or else they're not going to vote for us. Do you think that you can put some guidance out maybe that causes schools to close for even longer? Because the longer they're closed, the more the teachers union can advocate for keeping them open. And the more money that they can get. So the bottom line is the teachers unions was effectively in communication with the CDC saying that, well, we need these schools closed in order to get more money. Can you issue guidance to keep them closed? And if you don't think Dr. Fauci was involved in that at any level, I don't know what to tell you. He has to be. I'm not sure when those emails took place. I'm not going to read this entire article. That's the summary of it. I just wanted everybody to remember that the school leaders, the teachers unions of the United States of America, advocated for keeping the kids out of school, and Dr. Fauci and the CDC and the NIH and the White House were all complicit in it. They used school students, young kids who will never get those 2 years back, as bargaining chips and pawns in order to increase their own coffers. Dang. Okay, cool. Let's talk about poop. That's a transition. Poop. Chucking is never funny. Poop chucking, never funny, guys. This story, hilarious, out of Seattle. Our friend Ari Hoffman, who I believe hosts a show in Seattle. If you're watching from the greater Seattle area, you may appreciate this. Adjust the chair a little bit. I saw this, Ari shared this thing, and I just thought it was hilarious. This city council person, now, okay, I'm going to preface this. This is not funny, ladies and gentlemen. This is a serious topic. Someone is throwing poop at the home of one of Seattle's city council people. I don't think this is funny. I don't think you should think this is funny. This is not a joking matter. Somebody is throwing poop at a city council person's house. And I'm not advocating for this at all. I think it should stop immediately. And it's not funny. Not funny. Kashama Sawant, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, the Seattle City Council member who led the charge to defund the police department, is now requesting police to protect her home in response to repeated scatological vandalism. This is from the Post-Millennial, and that writing is hilarious. Scatological vandalism. Somebody's throwing poop at her house. She wants it to stop. Sources tell the Post... This isn't funny, guys. This is not funny. Sources tell the Post-Millennial that over the past month, somebody's been throwing human feces at the council member's home. According to the source, Seattle police responded and took a report. The council member is now requesting permanent patrol presence monitoring her place from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. every day. This isn't funny. This is not the first time. So the irony here is this city council woman, this city council, I'm not going to assume her, their gender, is requesting police detail after having repeatedly advocated for defunding the police. This is also the city that Chaz took place in, or Chop. I'm not really sure the city block that like anarchists took over and then failed to maintain, even though the city council was like, yeah, I guess you can just have that now. This is one of those people that was like, yeah, Chaz is great. We should defund the police. There should be no more policing. But also, when people are throwing poop at my house, can you come and stop by my place? This is not the first time the council member has asked for police protection. In December of 2020, following the riots that rocked the city in the wake of George Floyd, Sawant demanded police protection in response to threats. I can see that. That's fair. It's still ridiculous that she's advocating for defunding the police, but I can see that. At least I can see that. However, it was later revealed that Sawant had used the threats for publicity before contacting the Seattle police. Shocker. Sawant was one of the most vocal members to defund the police movement in Seattle, which led to hundreds of officers leaving the force. Following the defund movement, the crime skyrocketed and the city was on track to have the highest year on record of homicides. Not good. Not good at all. Again, no, I'm not advocating for anybody throwing poop at anything. There was also a guy who was throwing poop at Nancy Pelosi's house. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying that sometimes it happens. Don't do it, folks. Don't poop on people's driveways. Don't throw your poop at their house. It's not funny. Wow. So there's several of you that comment on these videos, and some of you, I swear, I should give a job to writing. It's just funny. You guys are just so funny in the comment sections, and I'll bring some of these to you. Scatological slinging. It's funny. Good writing from the post-millennial, and yeah, it's funny. Philip says, now that's funny. Julie says, LMAO, laughing. She's laughing very, very hard. Philip said, if it's not funny, why am I laughing? I don't know, Phil. That's your problem, not mine. This is a serious matter. And then the comment of the day of the poop slinging of the Seattle City Council member's house goes to Ryan. Man, that's crappy. This isn't funny, guys. We're not having a good time. This is a serious matter. That we should stop. Tomorrow, I do want to talk about. It's at a decent length. The Georgia the Georgia voting election laws. Do you remember the Jim Crow on steroids? The super duper racist voting laws in the state of Georgia. Well, there's a ruling that came out that will shock you, and the media is reacting accordingly. Stay tuned for that tomorrow. Also, Stacey Abrams is running for. Oh, that's what I was going to say. I had a conversation. Not had a conversation. I was listening to the brilliantly articulate mind of Charlie Kirk talking about the Georgia election. What was that, Saturday night? And oh my gosh, there's some interesting revelations that I would like to pass on to you. Could be really, really fascinating when it comes to who controls the Senate. Going to be fascinating. Anyways, all that tomorrow. We will see you then. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media accounts. Just type in JOBOB. You'll be able to find me pretty much any social media platform. The Chiron on Facebook is wrong, and I still have not added the Getter one. But just type in JOBOB. You'll be able to find me on Truth, Getters, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Also, I got to start posting more stand-up material because the stand-up. I think I posted like 2 stand-up reels, which are like short video clips in like a minute, and like one of them, this is 3.5 million views so far. This is insane. This is crazy, guys. I appreciate it. So if you're watching on YouTube, great. If you haven't followed on YouTube, go follow on YouTube because this stuff is blowing up and it's very exciting. And I appreciate all of you for sticking around and making it so that I can continue doing this. Very, very appreciative of that. That's going to do it for us today. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Actually, probably earlier. We tried a new system today, which, of course, you try it the morning of a Monday morning. That's why we're about a half an hour late. So appreciate all you sticking around, tuning in. See you tomorrow, same time, same place. God bless America.